Today, I'd like to invite you to help me establish a new feast day in the church. I probably don't have the authority to do that, but no, okay. Well, bear with me. Given today's readings, I think that we could call this the Feast of Discipleship. So, welcome to my personal feast. Did you notice that theme in all of the readings? Each one of them gave us a different perspective of what it means to be a disciple of Christ. Let's focus on that gospel from Luke. You know the story. In fact, it's the basis for the Fishers of Men's groups that are in our diocese. Jesus has called each and every one of those disciples and every one of us to be His disciple today. Now, what does that mean? Well, we've been told it means sharing the good news. So what's the good news? Let's make it simple. It just simply means sharing Christ. Sharing the profound effect that He has had in your life and in my life, and that He can be a part of anyone's life. And He already is. But just how often do we share those stories, and do we share Jesus like this? Most of the time, I think we can kind of act like Peter. Jesus tells him to lower nets and gives him the command to catch more fish. Peter, being an expert fisherman, and he says, you know what? We've been doing this all night long. We haven't caught anything. I don't really know what you're asking me to do. I don't have faith in it yet. But since you asked me, I'll go ahead and lower the nets and we'll see what happens. Well, we all saw what happened. How many of you are like me and have felt like on occasion I've kind of had that same feeling when maybe I felt God is tapping me on the shoulder? Sometimes I feel like, well, God, I kind of know what I want done. I know what's best. And you're pushing the limit for me. But then maybe finally we acquiesce and say, okay, do it your way, and we'll see what happens. And when His plan works out, quite often our nets are straining and tearing with blessings and abundance, just like our story this morning. And we do start to feel that His way is better than our way. But you know what? We might even still try to dodge it like Peter did and say, I'm sinful, Lord. I'm not the guy. You can't be asking me. Well, how did that work for Isaiah in this morning's reading? It didn't work for him. It didn't work for most of the prophets. And it didn't work for Peter. And my friends, it doesn't work for us. Because when I start to feel like using that alibi, it's almost as if I can hear Jesus' voice saying, you know what? I know you. I know you're sinful, and I know your faults. And I know your shortcomings. But you know what? I don't care. I want you anyway. I want you to follow me, because if you become my disciple, you'll be transformed, and those things will diminish in your life. If you commit to me, come and follow me, and everything will work out. You see, God has already called you and I at baptism to be just those kinds of disciples. And we're supposed to be sent out with His message of love and mercy and salvation. We have to be willing to say, okay, you got me. Let me give it a try. And then we need to be willing to share our own stories about Jesus and Christ's involvement in our life. You see, often I think we think proclaiming the good news means we have to have a theology degree. Or maybe we have to have some kind of profound teaching that we know and understand. Or maybe even just giving a homily. But it's more than that. It's sharing who you are and what Jesus has done in your life. That's sharing the good news. Are we willing to share these stories? That maybe when He healed somebody that we prayed for? Are we willing to share when maybe He's blessed us with abundance that we didn't expect in our life? Or been there when we needed consolation? What if somebody were to ask you, can you give me an example of what Jesus has done for you in your life? Do we have an answer? Are we ready to answer maybe when we've had peace and joy and happiness that we didn't expect? Are we ready to answer when He says, give me an example maybe where Jesus has consoled us in a time of sorrow? Can we tell them our stories? This is the challenge of being a disciple. We need to be ready to share Christ and what He's done for us in our lives and how He's been involved with us and given us His grace. Let me give you a little quick example from my own life. When I was only 23 years old, my father was very sick and in the hospital. And after visiting him on my way home, I stopped by to pray at a church. And as I was praying for his recovery, he was only 58 years old, I was overcome with the sense that I needed to finish my prayer like Jesus did in Gethsemane. So I said, God, not my will, you know what I want, but your will be done. And I was overwhelmed with a sense of peace and serenity that I hadn't felt in my fear of losing him. And before I could really process it, I changed my prayer to say, God, if this happens, show me what to do. Show me how to live up to being his son. Show me how to take care of things for my mother and my brothers and sisters. Show me what you want. And the fear and the anxiety went away. And I got a sense of peace and calm that he would tell me what to do when the time came. And he did. These are the kind of stories each and every one of you have too, where Jesus has been involved and God has been involved in your life. This is discipleship. So on this self-declared feast of discipleship, let's invite each other, and I invite you to maybe take a pledge of sorts to reflect on being that disciple of Christ. In fact, let's each take that pledge now. If you look in get out the white hymnal and turn to song number 828. If you look in there, the refrain of that song is a perfect echo from the reading of Isaiah this morning. We don't have to sing it. They're going to sing it at 12:15 though. But let's go ahead and recite it as a prayer. You ready? You want to do it with me? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I've heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart.